It's time for the Rose Chat Podcast, a podcast dedicated to celebrating the world's most beloved flower, the rose. Join award-winning gardeners Chris VanCleave and Teresa Byington as they chat with rose lovers and experts from around the globe. With each episode, you'll gain valuable knowledge and insights to achieve the rose garden you've always dreamed of. Listen now as we explore the world of roses.
Today I'm chatting with one of our favorites, Rebecca Koraytem, the U.S. Sales Executive for David Austin Roses. Now, I've been enchanted with David Austin Roses since the very beginning of my garden, more than 30 years ago. And a favorite time of year is hearing all about the new ones. Rebecca is going to talk about the new ones, of course, but she's also going to help us know which David Austin Roses pair well together. That'll be interesting. And she has an announcement about a giveaway for a lucky member of the Rose Chat community. So stay tuned. Hey, Rebecca, welcome back to Rose Chat.
Why, hello, and thank you so much for having me back. It's always a pleasure to be here.
Well, I am so happy to talk about roses today. It's cold, it's gray, and it's just doesn't look like spring. Yesterday I was out pruning roses, but today we're just going to have to fabricate our own warm sunshine. So how are things in your world?
Well, this time I am in South Carolina. I am looking out the window at lovely azaleas blooming, the wisterias blooming. It is fantastic. But where I normally am in Everett, Washington, they're seesawing back and forth between beautiful, balmy, sunny days and then dropping down into the 30s. So welcome to spring. Welcome to unpredictable weather. And, you know, that's what keeps us all humble, isn't it? Gardening and never really 100% knowing what's going to happen.
It does level the playing field all across this very vast and different country. We've got lots of different climates, but boy, they sometimes converge and just all do crazy things, don't they?
They sure do. They sure do. But you know, one of the things that I am most impressed with, you know, I started my career at Southern Living as a garden editor. And when I joined David Austin, I really got to see a lot of the country I had never seen. I got to witness growing in different areas of the country, learn a lot about what everyone faces. And I'm going to tell you, everyone, no matter where they live, they think they have it the worst. But I've been most impressed with how adaptive David Austin roses are. We see things like Lady of Shalott, which you hear that variety over and over and over again, but it's because it performs so well. We see it doing well from San Diego all the way up into Burlington, Vermont, which is amazing. But they really are versatile, they're adaptive, and they're easy to grow, which I think a lot of your young rose lovers are eager to hear.
Absolutely. Now, I've been poring over this catalog, and it's just beautiful from the front cover to the back cover. But I think the best place to start in talking about the roses is the newest ones, because I don't know as much about them. So tell us about those new ones.
Absolutely. So one of the new ones that you're going to see out and about, and we were actually had enough stock to get this variety into some of the garden centers, the independent garden centers, is Elizabeth. And it is named for Her Majesty. It's this charming apricot pink. So for those of you who want boots in both camps, you want the apricot, but you want the pink, Elizabeth is a lovely variety. She is a little bit of a spreading form, about 4.5 by 4.5 here in the States. But what most folks just fall in love with is she has a very strong, sweet, old rose fragrance. She is amazingly resilient. She can take exposed sites quite well. And I've been very impressed with her performance in our trials, both here and in the garden over in England. She's just done lovely. The other counterpart that I'm really falling in love with is Bring Me Sunshine. Don't you love that name? It's so happy. That was named after a popular music and comedy group. But the flowers are sunny. You've got yellows and apricots and deeper orangey tones. The fragrance on that is just as delicious. Just amazingly good, strong grower. I am going to really go out on a limb here. We're saying it is a shrub, but I'm wondering if in a few years we're going to see some climbing tendencies or it becoming a large arching shrub, kind of like Lady of Shalott. The amount of flowers you get off this rose is just amazing. We were at our trials at Over de Vest, who's one of our big growers on the coast of New Jersey. And I was very impressed with it in the gardens there. It's doing quite well. It's been a popular seller. I'm not sure how much more we have left, but it has been doing quite well. Then there's a couple of varieties that people don't know a lot about. Country Parsons. Anyone out there have Scottish heritage? You need to have this rose in your garden. It is this lovely yellow, and then the outer rims go to more of a soft, creamy, light yellow. It has performed and done quite well, even in Texas. We were sharing this information with our cohorts in England, and they're like, oh my gosh, this rose takes, really cold, brutal climates quite well. But we had some of our staff grow it in Tyler, Texas, and they said it just has done amazingly well through the heat and humidity, which is saying a lot. Now, it does have a lot of little thorns, but if you can get past that, I think you're going to be impressed with the disease resistance, the amount of flowers, and then this just lovely, strong fragrance that it has. It really is tough. It's a really kind of a fruity fragrance on that one too. Another rose that I've been very, very impressed with that is kind of an unsung hero is one called Silas Marner. Now, I remember reading Silas Marner when I was in high school, and I love the story. But the flowers remind me a little bit of Elizabeth, but they're smaller, but quite plentiful. And while Elizabeth is more spreading, this is an excellent vase-shaped rose that is going to be perfect for a border when you want to interplant with perennials or other shrubs below it. All right. Again, you're going to have a nice, strong old rose fragrance, and the disease resistance, just fantastic. Now, when we were at this trial, it was around October the 3rd, and that rose was covered in blooms. All right. That is a bonus for you. We're always telling folks, roses are really flowering shrubs. Think of them that way. And when you start seeing this kind of performance with these newer varieties, it really opens up your designer toolbox for you, doesn't it? Yeah. Two others that I want to tell you about that I was also impressed with that are newer on the scene. Nye Bevan is a very light, soft yellow performer, literally covered in blooms, has a very airy feel to it. But if you're looking for a border rose that is going to play well with the others, have a lot of flowers, excellent remonancy, I think it is a total win. You must add this because that color, it's such a pretty soft yellow. It's going to work
Mhm.
well with a lot of colors. Vanessa Bell looks similar, but a bigger plant, a little bit bigger flowers, but that performance is there, just like with Bevan. So all of those are newer on the scene or very new, and they're must-haves for the garden.
I have bought Vanessa Bell a few years ago. I just absolutely love this rose. It's very hardy. It's vigorous, but in a very pretty way. It's a good shrub and not really the long arching canes. It holds to itself a little bit more. I had to get another one. It's just that pretty. It's just that pretty.
I'm
And the yellow's
so
just
happy you
yummy.
said that. It is yummy. It really
It is.
is yummy.
I have to tell you, a few weeks ago, I put on my blog, I was talking about the color yellow because you just look around in the spring and you see yellow is just everywhere. And there were many years that I just really resisted putting any kind of yellow in my garden. I'm not
Mm-hmm.
sure why, but I just did. That is not the case. And this is what I said. I not only have yellow all over my garden, I am blazing a trail into orange because I have Bathsheba, and she just taught me some things. Bathsheba
Yeah.
has those tones and she's a good, strong, those blooms are just hefty. They're gorgeous. And she can handle the weather too. But getting Bathsheba, I mean, she just took me right over the edge from yellow into apricot and beyond. So there's so many pretty ones here. Yep.
Well, and here
Mm.
is the wonderful thing about the David Austins. You know, we're going to chat a little bit about combos that work well together. Well, I was giving a presentation to a Rose Society recently, and we were focusing on design. And I said, okay, so if you have somewhere you have to go, I'm just going to tell you this. Most, like 99% of all David Austins just look beautiful together because Mr. Austin was so brilliant in his breeding and his thinking. He wanted all of the petals to have this alabaster quality, almost look like porcelain, so that light just poured through and made that flower glow. And because of that, all of the colors are very soft. They play well with each other. You'll find pinks and apricots and yellows and creams really in all of the varieties in some form or fashion, unless you're looking at one of the deep crimsons. So, you know, they really do work well together. And when you go cutting, to bring a bouquet inside to enjoy, I'm always amazed at how I'm so surprised how beautiful they all look together. And even like the crimsons and the yellows, you'll go, oh, wow, I would never put this together in the garden, but here it is in the bouquet, and I'm quite happy with the effect of it.
It's so true. They do work so well together, especially in a vase. So now you've mentioned border a couple of times, and we do like to plant them in groups and borders. So give us some suggestions on roses that do pair well together.
Yeah, so, you know, let's go back and start with good old Lady of Shalott. She is kind of an anchor. She can be that big back of the border rose that kind of holds court and ties everything down. She looks lovely with Lark Ascending. You can transition into something like Litchfield Angel or Vanessa Bell or a Nye Bevan. One of our designers, Richard, in the UK, actually loves pairing Lady of Shalott with Eustacia Vye. And that is going into the pink realm. But you can take anything that is an apricot hue, and then you know how not all pinks are created equal. If something has a little bit of a apricot hint to it, or is more of a corally pink, that is a natural blender with apricot and corally tones. So another good, what I call transitional variety is Roald Dahl. It can be apricot. You can see some yellow in there. You can see hints of pink. When we were in England this past summer, my husband, who only thing he knows about roses is what he overhears me saying. So we've walked through the gardens. We've, gone out to their retail center and looked around. And I'm like, so what is your favorite rose? Out of all these roses, what do you like the best? And he said, I like Roald Dahl. And I'm like, really?
Ooh. I'm going to have to put that on my list, I guess.
Roald Dahl? And he said, because it looks like a bowl of melting sherbet. Yes, yeah. And he was right. But, when you go in and you're looking at some of the pinks or crimson tones, it's always pretty safe to say, okay, I'm a beginner. How do I do this? If you will kind of look at what is the base tone, is it a true blue, or do you have more of a apricot-y or corally hint to that pink? All right. So the corally hint to the pink, you're going to go with your yellows and apricots and all. That's pretty safe. If you're more of a true blue base, then you can pair up with those crimsons, the blushes, the other pinks, the similar pinks. Two of our roses that may be some of the hardest to design with may be Princess Alexandra of Kent, because she starts off one shade of pink that almost has a little bit of a kind of that corally pink, and then goes to this blue purple as she ages. So, what's a girl to do? I would probably pair her with blush tones like a gentle Hermione or something that's very soft. I think she might even be able to play well with Elizabeth. Definitely a Litchfield Angel or Desdemona. So going into kind of those safe colors. And then you could even take her in with Darcy or Munstead wood if you have that in your border. Tessa the D'Urbervilles if you're doing some climbers and on tours, or up a trellis, that's also a part of that border.
I'm going to stop you for a moment and let's just talk about Eustacia Vye. I have to tell you that all winter I've been obsessed with this rose. There's so many videos on YouTube from people who grow this rose, and they just gush and they gush about it. And you look at the picture and you see that apricot that you're talking about, and you see that pink, you see that ruffled edge. They say it's so healthy and it's so fragrant. I have two coming and I cannot wait for them to bloom. My husband, who is not, he loves to see the roses, but he's not a rose man. He's heard so much about Eustacia Vye. And what he says is, I just like to say her name, Eustacia Vye. And if you hear someone British say it, it's even more beautiful. So we kind of look at each other and go, Eustacia Vye. We cannot wait for Eustacia Vye. So is she that great? She looks great.
Well, and for being so lovely, she was the flawed heroine of the Thomas Hardy novel, Return of the Native. So, there's always, if you're familiar with that story, but she has this wonderful, strong, fruity fragrance. She really is healthy. And that is a part of this whole new breeding program where we're so focused on health and vigor, shorter internodes, heavy remonancy or heavy repeat. And it's just like they just keep giving. And I've seen her in borders. I've seen her in containers. I'm very pleased. I'm almost afraid to gush too much because I don't want to jinx her.
Yes, I know. Now, you mentioned the newer ones and the health. We've noticed that roses are becoming more and more popular with our young gardeners. And so,
Yes.
so what would you say to them? Is Eustacia Vye one that you would recommend for them?
Absolutely. Eustacia Vye is a great starting point. Gabriel Oak, folks are having success with that. Silas Marner, I've had new people tell me they have used Silas Marner and have really fallen in love with Silas. It's the whole thing is don't overthink it. You want to find preferably a nice sunny spot. But if sun is limited in your garden, morning sun is more important than afternoon sun. You want to pick a spot where the soil is well drained. You want to make sure that soil is rich in organic matter, but I am not about recreating the terrain. I really think that let the rose adapt, okay? No more than a 50-50 mix, 30% compost in there, and then let the rose adapt, unless you have that horrible, horrible clay that you can make pots out of. But if you do that, place the rose where it will get morning sun and protection from the hottest afternoon sun. Don't overlove it. All right. I'm going to tell you, more people, more newbies call in to us going, I was feeding it this, and it got mycorrhizal fungal, and then it got fish emulsion, and then it got this. We're like, oh my heavens, you've got that rose so jacked up. You just need to let it detox a little bit, and it's going to be fine. But yeah, just jump right in there. If you are new and you're got a bare root rose and you're like, so how do I plant this? Dig a nice hole that is about twice the width of the root system, okay? You can make a little cone in the bottom, place that bare root on it, and then water and firm as you go. Make sure you plant deep. If it is a grafted rose, that's the knot, you should put that at least a 1, or if you're in a really cold area like zone 6, zone 5, zone 4, the deeper you go where that graft is below grade. If you have an own root rose, you're also going to plant deep. And I like to see the crown of an own root rose at least 1, sometimes 2 inches below grade as well. And that's going to help you overwinter.
You hear a lot about own root roses right now. And so for our newbies, talk a little bit about what that means, the good or the bad, or just talk a little bit about own root roses.
Sure. So here's what's interesting. In England, they only offer grafted roses. All David Austins over there are grafted. Okay. Their roses are smaller than ours. Here in America, everything grows bigger. We actually get bigger flowers. But when we came here, and this is the old way of doing it, you, in order to make a nice big rose that thrived, you grafted it on a rootstock to make it really tough and viable and vigorous, okay? Some David Austin varieties actually do better, and we know it for a fact because we see it in the field. We feel that Boscobel and Roald Dahl really do better grafted than on root. We see that when we grow them out in the field. But, and there's another thing too. Grafting is hard. It's a dying art. And so it is much easier and faster to do an own root rose. So an own root rose means that it's growing on its own root system. Now, if you live in a really, really cold area where that rose can die back to the ground, an own root rose is probably best for you because it's going to come back true. All right. If you plant a grafted rose and you don't plant it deep enough, and you have one of these horrible killing frosts or freezes, and the whole top dies off, guess what you're going to get? you're going to get this shoot with a red Dr. Huey flower on it, and you'll be like, wait, this was white. Why is it red now? And chances are that top died off. Is one better than another? It's really your call. A lot of people in the South and hot, humid areas think that the grafted rose is better for them because it helps give the rose extra vigor to get through the heat and humidity that is taxing on the rose. That said, I have seen just as many roses that are own root do quite well in the South or in hot, really trying areas. If you take a grafted rose, here's a fact that not everyone realizes, and you plant it deep, you will have that graft to kind of jumpstart you. And then within a couple years, the top, the own root part of it, will actually develop its own root system, and you have the benefit of both grafted and own root. So it's whatever your heart desires. Sometimes it's whichever one you can get the variety of, just to get that. And often we have to settle. I would say right now in the U.S., about 80% of folks prefer an en route rose. So it's a selling feature.
It is for me because we are cold here and we dip, we get warm, and then we get terrible freezes. So, and that is so hard on a grafted rose. So I do bury my roses. If they're grafted, I'm going to bury them 2 inches deep. And, but there's just a peace of mind in the money that you spend because it may die back right to the ground, but I know it's coming back. And so, your investment, I feel like, it is just well spent on those own root roses for sure in my neck of the woods.
Yep. And I do prefer personally an en route myself. The first couple of years, the flowers are going to be smaller and the plant's going to be smaller. But after 2 or 3 years, you can't tell the difference between grafted and en route. They catch up to each other and they end up being the same end products. So you are so wise with going with what is going to protect your investment.
Well, that's true. But it does come down to what you can find. Sometimes these, we fall in love. Like I fell in love with Eustacia Vye. Luckily, I could get her. But sometimes we don't have as many choices as we might want. We might decide, after the big rush of sale. So we sometimes just have to take what we can get. You mentioned that, and it's true. So, but either way, it's going to be a winner. Either way, we protect them. And so whatever you can get, I think you'll do very well with.
Yes. So if, let's say, because we're still buying bare root roses and it's bare root rose season still in our colder areas, when that rose comes in, rehydrate it. Think about the last time you went on a flight and you're so thirsty because it dries you out to travel. So make sure you put that rose in a bucket of water and let it soak at least 2 hours. 24 hours is more than enough. I had a phone call the other day and someone said, is 7 days enough? And I was like, oh my heavens, that might just be a little too much. But yeah, do rehydrate the rose. I like to trim back the tops. All of our really good growers, when they're in production mode, they will cut those tops back to 8 to 10 inches and pot them up as deep as they can get them in the pot. You'll be planting direct in the ground. And most of them will trim back the tips of the roots too to stimulate those hormones. So just a little grower tip there for you if you're new starting out. And it really does help. Now, if you have that cold weather and you see that the tips have gotten black, or there's some mottling on the stems, that's not unusual. We're not out of the woods yet. Cut back into good living wood as much as you can and then just be patient. Make sure you've got that rose buried deep. Continue to water it through winter, and it will survive. I had photos sent to me this morning where someone actually saw some black spots on the stem, and they're like, I've done everything right. It was so beautiful. Is it going to die? And I'm like, no, I think you can make it live. Just, maybe put a little extra soil around it, trim the tops, and be patient.
That trimming is so important. It just tells the rose, oh, wake up, it's time to do something.
That's exactly right.
Kind of like when you get your hair cut, and then it's like, oh, I can grow now. I can grow more because I've done a little step. So I don't know what exactly know what's going on in there, but I know that it is true, and that's why in the fall we stop cutting them. We don't want them. Right. We don't want them to keep growing and get nipped in the winter. So the same thing holds true on the opposite. Well, let's talk, since we're talking to some of our new growers. Tell us about, give them a few suggestions for fragrant David Austins, because, especially when you're new, I can go with beauty all day long, but when I was newer, I was kind of going for a fragrance. But tell us about some of the most fragrant David Austins.
Yes, because all David Austin roses are fragrant. There's 5 different fragrance profiles, and we give them a rating of 1 to 5. But like the new Elizabeth, that's strong, sweet old rose. That's really fragrant. Eustacia Vye, there we go, singing her praises again. Gabriel Oak, like Eustacia Vye, has a nice fruity fragrance, and Americans love, love, love fruity. We were talking about Bathsheba. That has a myrrh fragrance. That's one of our climbers. The British are quite fond of myrrh, which is that warm kind of anisey, spicy fragrance. Queen of Sweden has that fragrance also. Silas Marner smells great. Country Parson smells great. This is an older one, but I'm always blown away by it when I smell it. Harlow Carr. It has a lot of little thorns. That old rose fragrance loaded with flowers, but the fragrance is fantastic. Munstead wood, in America, people are nuts for Munstead wood, and it smells wonderful. Gertrude Jekyll, an oldie. Now, I'm going to tell you something about Gertie, and I say that respectfully because we love Gertrude Jekyll. Yes, she is a climber, but she can be very, very fickle for you. She's not going to flower as much as our other roses, but her fragrance is divine. And I think Mr. Austin really loved that old rose fragrance that she had. Emily Bronte, we haven't chatted about her yet today. She has what we call kind of a combination fragrance. Some of our roses will start out with one fragrance and then transition into another. She has a kind of a strong tea scent on the front end, and then as she ages, goes to an old rose scent. Generous Gardener is a climber that has old rose, a myrrh, and a musk scent to it. A lot of times when you see roses that have a lot of exposed stamens, they will have that musk scent, and that helps bring the pollinators in. So that's really yummy. Claire Austin is a lovely white climber with healthy green foliage. She's got a nice, strong myrrh fragrance. All right, I'm going to give you an oldie and a newer, and they smell divine. They're yellows. Charles Darwin, probably one of my most requested yellows last year at wholesale, because people know it just smells divine with that tea and kind of citrusy scent. And then Poet's Wife, one of my personal favorites, heavenly citrusy scent on that. Princess Alexander of Kent and Princess Anne, I call the two princesses, wonderful roses for your garden. I think and they're pink. Normally, tea scent comes from yellow or apricot roses, but these are really bold pinks, and they have a tea scent. I think Princess Alexandra of Kent is a little more fragrant. And she actually does quite well in all climates. And Princess Anne is wonderful if you're looking for fragrance that goes late into the season, too.
Oh, that's some good ones. I'm so excited. I have Gabriel Oak coming. I have Emily Bronte coming. I have Elizabeth coming. You know, my daughter lives in England, so I have Elizabeth. So I'm so excited. Oh, my goodness. This is such a fun season, is it not?
It really is. It really is. And, you know, next year, I can't tell you, I'm not allowed to talk about any of this now, but the new varieties that will come out for the coming season are going to be fantastic. And they're going to be fragrant also. And they're going to be disease resistant. So you're winning on all levels.
Oh my goodness. You've got me so excited. I can't wait now. I'll be driving my husband crazy. Well, with all this good news, we even have some other big news. You have a promo for us.
We do have a promo. We actually have 2 promos for you. So for all of the listeners, if you will go to davidaustinroses.com, and if you're placing an order, you'll get 10% off if you type in, when you check out, Garden 24. And that is exclusive to the Rose Chat listeners. So make sure you do that. And that is going to be good through May 31st for placing orders. And then we have a really fun one that we're going to do. You want to talk about that, Teresa?
I do. One lucky person is going to win a $100 voucher to purchase beautiful David Austin roses for your garden. Now, this promo is going to run from Sunday, April 14th through May 1st. So a little window there. And all you have to do is send an email to rosechatpodcast@gmail.com. It's an easy one. And tell us one of your favorite David Austin roses, or a rose you think is going to be your favorite David Austin rose. Then we'll take a look at our list and we'll email the winner by the middle of May. $100 voucher.
How good is that?
This is exciting. This is perfect timing as we're getting our rose gardens ready. And you've just told us about so many beautiful roses. Yeah, that's a good one.
You know, we also, as much as I talk to folks about roses, we love to see your children. So, you know, don't be shy about taking photos of your favorite rose and sending that along with the email to Teresa. It doesn't have to be from this year, of course, because they're just waking up in the garden. But if you have a photo you want to share with Teresa or with us, we love to see what you're growing. And who knows, one day we might even use your photo in our catalog.
Ooh, wouldn't that be fun? And speaking of the catalog, if there's anyone out there that doesn't have a catalog, could you tell us how we could get one?
Yes, just go to davidaustinroses.com and you can search order catalog, and it'll take you right to the page where you can request one. If you want the good old-fashioned snail mail version, we still do that. Or if you're trying to save paper, you can say, click here, and you can thumb through the catalog on the fly right there, or you can download it to your phone or laptop and look at it when you should be doing other things.
Like on cold gray days. Perfect.
Yes, exactly.
Oh, Rebecca, thanks so much for joining me today and bringing us such good news about roses for our garden.
Well, it is always fun. And, you know, I feel like I'm just like sitting here visiting, and it's always a pleasure, always a treat, because you have such wonderful enthusiasm, and I know your listeners do too.
Yes, we do. We're a very enthusiastic bunch about roses. So thank you for coming and joining me today. And friends, we're so glad you joined us today. And don't delay. Go email rosechatpodcast@gmail.com. Tell me your favorite David Austin rose. Send me a picture. That would be fabulous. You just might be the winner of that $100 voucher. And don't forget to use our Garden 24 at checkout for 10% off. Wouldn't that be sweet? Well, friends, until next time, happy gardening.
You've been listening to the Rose Chat Podcast with Chris VanCleave and Teresa Byington, expert rose gardeners who want to help you achieve the rose garden of your dreams. Don't miss an episode. Listen anytime on our website at rosechatpodcast.com or listen on the go via the Rose Chat app on iTunes and Stitcher Radio. Share this podcast with your social networks and join us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram by using the hashtag RoseChat. Join us next time for another edition of the Rose Chat Podcast. The Rose Chat Podcast is a production of the Rose Chat Media Group, Birmingham, Alabama.